Let's just have an adult conversation right here, right now. First and foremost, if you've been watching my channel for any length of time, you know that I took a shot at doing an ADU. I've already admitted repeatedly that I did it wrong timing, bad team, too big a footprint. I did it badly. I should have been copying recipes and plans from folks like Derek, that ADU guy. I wasted 8 grand, learned some lesson, but backed away. I didn't go do it again. I now have talked to Thatch Nguyen. I now have talked to Eddie, who led a great video, Eddie down in Southern California. I've gone back and talked to Derek. I am now convinced, at least in the short term, the next couple of years, one of the best things that I can do with my money, my footprint in Fresno, California, is add ADU units to my single family homes. So what I want to do here in this video is give everyone a view of how to do this, because again, I did it wrong. So in order to have this conversation, we're bringing on Derek, that ADU guy who has a mission to influence 1 million ADUs created. Talk about addressing affordable housing. I want Fresno to become a blueprint that other cities can copy. Derek, thank you for being here again.
Hey, I'm super stoked to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And the reason Adam is here with me is Adam is a member of the Hub. He is on my eyes and ears on the ground in Fresno. He and I partnered on those 2 flips that we did successfully at the end of the year. And one of the things that I know after talking with Derek last week about creating a treasure map and helping and having the city know that you are an asset to building ADUs is I have to have somebody on the ground in Fresno, somebody that can go there, in the beginning and build those relationships. And frankly, somebody that is more likable than me. I can be abrasive. I can be not fun to deal with, but Adam, everybody loves Adam. So Adam, thank you for being here today.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
So Adam, you don't know this. We've only texted. I am hoping that there's kind of a 3-step process I see for you is step 1, we're going to get the roadmap from Derek here in a minute. I want you to help the city create a couple of ADUs in my portfolio. We'll talk about that in a minute. Then I think you can you can generate some income for yourself and your business in the short term as the one rental at a time community that says, hey, I want to copy what Mike does. Adam, can you help me? And maybe you create a project management fee or something to help other out of area investors do the same thing in their portfolio. And then ultimately you can create a company or use your current LLC or company to really become a builder of ADUs, right? We've done 10 of them. Here's the fixed line of materials. Here's the price point. Here's these things. Here's the options. This can become a platform where Adam goes next level in a year or so. But it all starts with getting the steps and processes from Derek here in a minute. Adam, how does that hit you? How does that feel? Just to start.
I mean, I think the ADU thing in itself is a great opportunity. Like Derek said in the other video you guys had, not a lot of people are taking advantage of it. I think that's really, really interesting. And then 2, I'm curious to see what you can do with properties that I get that usually we might just toss away because they might not be an ideal deal.
Exactly.
And something like this might be able to be turned into a good rental, a flip, whatever it might be. So I'm excited to see where that might be able to go, especially if there's not a lot of people doing it. So
yeah. And again, one of the things you'll be able to do once Derek here gives us the roadmap is you can even target your marketing, right? You're going to go look at these different areas. So again, I think there's a lot of things we could do. Adam, please ask questions. Don't let me dominate this, but we're going to go to Derek now. Derek, one of the things that you shared with us last week was kind of step 1. And again, if this isn't step 1, this is just my memory, is you've got to go to the city, you've got to work with the city, and you've got to create the treasure map, right? Where does the city want focus? It's kind of how I remember it. Is that something where we should start with? Maybe give Adam a list of 5 or 10 properties and go to the city and say, hey, where should we start? Is that kind of where this all begins?
Yeah. Good question, Michael. And just to preface everything here, the influencing 1 million ADUs in my lifetime, I know that's a lofty goal, but I plan to live to be very old. And that's why I'm all about giving away all my trade secrets to as many people that will listen. And it's exciting to be here talking about this again with you. Again, I've been doing this for 25 years and nobody's wanted to hear until the last couple. So thanks. Yes, the relationship with the city is where this process starts. And we have to remind ourselves, we're not investors, we're people. We're going there to build relationships. Our first thought is not, how am I going to go leverage the city zoning map to make money or add properties? Our mindset has to be, how do we go to the city and figure out what their needs are and try to help them? And that's actually a truism. We can go and we can ask for the housing needs analysis. We can introduce ourselves to the deputy planner, to the community development director. We have to remember that their job, they're paid on a tax basis to help us develop. That's their only job. So if we can go in there, like Michael said, with a more softer approach than some of our abrasive tactics that we have as type A investors, and get somebody somebody else that's charming and that everybody loves, I think it's a great plan. But it's going to start with building that relationship and asking the city what we can do to help them, not like what they can do to help us. We just have to shift our mindset a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of the things that I really wanted, I want to know this first step. And again, this is only my idea. This can be a totally stupid and dumb idea. My first thought is to give Adam a list of 5 or 10 properties that I own in different parts of the city.
Yeah.
And then Adam goes to the city and says, hey, we're thinking about building ADUs. We want to do what's right by the city. Could you help us understand? And again, maybe it's the needs analysis. These are all the things that we need to figure out and go, where should we start? We can do any of these. We are agnostic. What would be good for the city? Does that feel like amazing. A good idea?
That's a perfect idea. So you're coming in there with direct questions. You're going to say, hey, we are investors. You're upfront and honest. We want to build needed infill housing. We own a list of properties that we brought with us. And after we try to understand the housing needs that the city has and things that the city and the city council is really supporting and pushing right now, after we establish that little bit of relationship, then we're going to actually ask them directly, hey, which one of these properties do you think would be easier to approve? There's little things that'll come up. They might say, well, hey, this section of town, we have a bunch of grants right now to do green space and parks. We want to see people here. Or they might say, this is a historic district. These 3 houses, it's possible, but it's going to be a whole nother layer of bureaucracy and approvals to get approved in that district. So I wouldn't do those. Honestly, respect their opinion and ask them what they would do. So yes, that's a great first step, but everybody always wants to start with the property or the price, or even the location. And that's not always the case. In this strategy, you always have to start with becoming an expert in the planning and zoning department in your municipality where you're going to deploy this, and knowing the people and having a rapport with the people. You're not going to be best friends with them, but having a recognizable conversation or having their email or having their office phone number and extension is so valuable in this business, because they're the rule makers and they honestly hold the keys to the kingdom of this strategy.
So let's try to make it concrete. So again, I can give Adam a list of properties. That's a no-brainer. I can make sure they're separate so it covers the map. Is he going to walk into what? Does he just walk into the department, go to the desk?
Yeah,
that's where it starts, right?
Yes, it's planning and zoning. So planning and zoning is different than building. A lot of people think they need to go to the building department. You don't go to the building department with blueprints until you have an approved zoning plan. So you always start with the planning and zoning. I usually go directly to the development director or the community development director, the head of the department. I usually start there and ask them, where in your chain of command should I start? If you call, you'll most likely get a low-level planner, maybe a deputy planner. Those are fine too. But if you go to the director from the beginning, you don't have as much back and forth telephone. You can get direct information from the person who's in all the city meetings. They're at the city council meetings. They go to the planning commission meetings. Whereas some of these more junior planners, they don't have to do that. So I start at the top with that. But yeah, planning and zoning, it's not the building department. It's not the inspection department. It's not code enforcement. It's not public works. It's not where you go to pay your utility bill. You have to focus on planning and zoning.
So you were nice enough. You had done some work with Fresno. You sent me a couple of names. One of them's Jennifer. The other is Steven. Jennifer appears to be the director. So again, Adam wouldn't per se go to the county steps. Adam would call her, leave a message, and hope for a call back. Or do you go to the desk and you say, hey, can I talk to Jennifer? Oh, go ahead, Adam.
County or city?
Oh, good question.
So it's going to be the city in Fresno for sure. So this is a site specific thing, and these rules, there's overarching state law. California is really unique. There's this awesome overarching state law where cities can still have a little bit of control, but not as much as most other states that don't have legislation. But in Fresno, for your example, if the property is in the city, you're gonna have to go to the city. It's always the authority having jurisdiction. If it's outside of the county, outside the city limits or the urban growth boundary, you would have to go to the county. But city property, always start with the city. And you can call them and say, hey, 123 Main Street, I'd like to do an ADU. Is this going to work? And they'd say, no, actually, you need to call Tulare County. That's not in our jurisdiction. So the city is where we're going with this. And the three things to answer your question, Michael, that are very imperative that we do is we call, we email, and we go in person. That three-pronged approach every single time. Even if we get an email, even if we get a call back, we want FaceTime with the decision makers. So all three of those. And it's such a simple step. People think, oh, I'll send an email, or they have an introverted style of doing business. You can't do that here. You have to become active in this movement if you're going to crush it.
So again, I want to make this painfully obvious. Not only, oh, Adam, you have a question. Sorry, please.
I was just going to ask real quick that kind of ties into this. I know you had said too, Derek, on when you guys had done your conversation last week that they might also be able to give you a kind of a highlighted map of here are all the areas that you can operate in if you wanted to do ADUs. Is that something that I could probably obtain from the community development director?
Yes.
As well?
Yeah. In your call, email, and go in, you're going to introduce yourself. You're going to state the obvious facts. We're investors. We're looking to deploy the ADU strategy. You're going to ask for what areas are the city going to most support them in the fastest way, and you're going to ask for a zoning map. And that zoning map is what I quoted, the kind of color-coded treasure map, where it shows areas of the city. This is the railroad district. This is the downtown overlay. This is the historic district. This is where you don't want to do it. This is our residential infill project area of town where we're going to push these through. In fact, we're going to expedite your plans if you do one here. So that's the map I was talking about. It's a zoning map, and they're usually color-coded.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
So again, in this case, we believe Jennifer is the director of this based on at least 6 months ago information. We'll verify that. But again, call Jennifer if you can, email Jennifer, and then go into the office and ask for Jennifer. That's kind of what we're talking about here.
Yes. Yep. Yes, exactly. Start at the top. And even if you can't meet with her or he or them, follow their chain of command from there. But if you always try to start at the top, they give you a little bit more respect. I think they understand that you know what a planning director is, and they respect that. So that's what I do, and that's what I coach people to do as well.
Okay. So again, assume we get this list together. We've got to chase down Jennifer's email address, which I'm sure we could do. Probably start with phone call and email, and then go follow up in the next 48 hours with a visit to the office. Is that what we're thinking? Something like that?
Yes, that's perfect. Yep. And everything is very easy to find. This is all public information. So City of Fresno Planning and Zoning Department, it gives you a list of employees. It's got their phone numbers. It's got their emails. People are usually a little bit harder to get a hold of on phone these days since COVID, but email, it's usually within a day, and you can always go in. There are odd hours, so you can check. Most websites will have updated hours. A lot of planning departments are open from like 9 to noon and then 1 to 3 at the counter. So check your counter hours before you go in. Save yourself a trip so you're not wasting your time.
All right. So let's assume we eventually get in front of Jennifer after a couple of meetings. We schedule something. It eventually happens. We've probably given by one of the lower level folks the treasure map or heat map or zoning map. We have the list of properties. Let's just say we all agree, that's the one to start with. It's the one there's a grant for, whatever. Where do we go from there? Are we taking them to site visits, or how do we just continue to build that relationship? Because again, Derek, I don't want to build one. I want Adam to have a relationship that's friendly, that maybe, eventually they are doing site visits or going out to dinner or something to celebrate completion or something like that. How do we make sure that becomes a true bridge versus a single point of contact?
That's a sticky subject, because as public officials, they can't really have too friendly of a relationship with investors. That's kind of frowned upon at times, with the exception of becoming some kind of committee member or commission member, which I would highly recommend you do. So when you can have a professional relationship with the planning department, that isn't self-serving, but it's also more direct access. I would highly recommend looking into getting on maybe the planning commission or a parks committee or some sort of, we honestly want to help. Like, how can we volunteer our time to help the city grow and help Fresno flourish? And if you're on some of these volunteer committees, some of them are very little time commitment, but you're an active volunteering member of that department, even though you're not paid staff or an elected official. That's when you start to be able to form those closer relationships, and you go to events and you go to ribbon cuttings and you go to groundbreakings of affordable housing. That's where you're actually doing more of that, kind of that lobbying work. But great question. That's a wonderful question. And every area is a little bit different, but most public officials are, it's hard to get them on record off the job.
No problem. So again, this is why Adam is here, because again, Adam is going to be in Fresno for a long time, and I think being a volunteer on one of these committees might be a great thing. These are the little nuggets I was hoping to get from you, Derek. Adam, how's that feel? I don't want to sign you up for things that are crazy.
Well, I will tell you, before my mom was doing what she was doing, she says she was in lobbying. I thought that was illegal, but okay, whatever. So she's very familiar with it. And I think you got the right guy to wine and dine the people in the city. And I will say, all jokes aside, I have dealt with the city in a lot of different instances, whether I'm talking to them about a property and trying to figure out the zoning, or I'm getting code enforcement records. And I have kind of developed a better sense of how to handle them or how to get in touch with them, because a lot of them, you can email and call them 20 times and they just don't care and won't pick up. I've noticed that sometimes too with different departments. And so I'm more than happy to get in touch with them and reach out to them and see how we can help. And I know that sometimes it needs a little bit of a different approach, or else they aren't really too communicational with you. So I'm excited to see what we can figure out. I was already just looking on the website while you guys were talking, just to see. Usually all the contacts, like you said, Derek, are all listed online. Very easy to find.
And what I really sense here, Derek, and why getting Adam involved for me is important, is we've got to do the first one right. It's got to be easy, and the city's got to feel like they got to win. Because again, I would like to be a part of helping you get to 1 million ADUs, and that might mean doing 100 of these over the next 2 or 3 years. And I think it is getting the first one done right, getting that relationship, being a positive, not a thorn in the side of these, officials. Because again, what I envision out of this is, hey, the city's got 5 plans. We have built 2 or 3 of these a dozen times. We're a known entity. We've paid the $2,000 to do a plot map and get it certified. We now Adam has a building. He's a contractor. He's got a builder that he's like, hey, we do these 3 things here, the 3 different versions, right? Because again, we can't change the structure, but we can change the material. We can change the colors. We can change the landscaping. We can do stuff like that. And they could be, quote, custom homes by Adam's company.
Yes. Yes.
Quick question.
Go ahead,
Adam. Derek, talking about serving the city or helping them out, what's a good thing to essentially pitch to them or talk to them about how we can be a positive change besides adding extra housing and more space? What's some other selling points that I can use to kind of get the city on my side, encourage them that we're helping them out?
Yeah, do your homework. Just like Michael always says, do the work. If I showed up at an event to Michael and said, hey, I've never read your book, I've never watched your channel, I've never done the work, I don't have a buy box, but I want you to help me, do you think Michael's going to give me the time of day? No, he's not. There's a lot of people there that have worked a lot harder that need his time. Same thing with the city. I would show up and say, hey, I've reviewed the housing needs analysis. I understand that the city needs 1,500 one-bedroom apartments in the next 5 years. I'm looking at joining the Parks Commission because I care about planting trees. I grew up in this park here and there was never any shade. I'm also very active in my community, in my church. I grew up here. I plan to live here for a long time, and I want to make an influential difference. With that said, X. I mean, that's how you build the relationship. You need to show up with value. You need to show up saying that I'm already established here and I'm working to be a volunteer. And I've done my homework. Like, I know who you are. I know you're the director. I know what a housing needs analysis is. 99.5% of investors don't even know what that is. And that's really what you're asking the city for, is to help me work through your housing needs analysis so we can build needed housing in areas that the city has designated for this strategy. So that's really what I would do.
The
And I
housing
think you're
I'll
going to be
take,
great at it.
Yeah, I
well,
think
what
it
is
is.
the housing needs analysis? I'll take the hit and say I'm one of the investors that's never heard of that before. Where can I find that? And I guess I'm not going to say why is that important because I can probably very well guess. But where's a good way to find that? Is that something that's published pretty frequently, or
Yeah, there's a
I'm
couple
totally
different
green.
ways. All cities are required by state law to have some kind of comprehensive plan or long-term plan, and that's in the document section of almost every website. I can go to any city in the country, and they're all formed a little bit differently. They may have a little bit different titles, but they're all going to have some sort of document center where they have their municipal code, where they have their public works code, where they have their long-term transportation plan. This is all planning terms. Again, I said this earlier, but Adam, you're going to be a great bridge. I already can tell. I've met you. I know you're going to do amazing at this. But the one person that you guys should at least have on call is a professional land use planner, because the professional land use planner is an expert in all of the things we're talking about. You don't have to become an expert in the housing needs analysis or read the 400-page comp plan, but you have to know how to find it. You have to know how to reference it. And really, it'd be like me telling Michael I read both of his books and I have a buy box. And can you give me 3 minutes to answer a question? He's going to say, hell yes.
Exactly.
But if I come up to him with no research, he's probably not going to give me as much attention. Same thing here.
Yeah. Is that, by the way, is that a city employee, a professional land use planner?
No. The city has planners. So the community development director is a planner, the deputy is a planner, and then there's planner 1, planner 2, which is basically the steps of a planner. But you're looking for a private sector land use planner. You don't have to have one on standby, but they will answer your phone because you're paying them. They will answer your call. And I was going to say earlier, you said it's hard to get calls back, and it is. There's a non-incentivized system that public employees have. They get paid the same whether they approve your plans, they don't approve them, or they never call you back again. So the building the relationship, and this is really clear because some planning officials watch some of my stuff, and I always try to protect them and tell them that we're not getting special treatment by having these relationships. What we're getting is a return call.
Yeah.
we're getting an answer. Like, we're not going to get any backroom handshake development deal on this, but what we will get is service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes
So that's something we need to look up. We need to find somebody in our Fresno community that knows someone that is a professional land use planner. And if they happen to be looking for office space, I will gladly give them a room at the hub. Just might be a nice give to get. But that's something we have to look for. And again, I'm happy to pay for this because, again, I think getting the first one right sets us on a path to do hundreds.
For sure. Oh yeah, you couldn't say that any better. But just back to the question there, Adam, is you would ask in that call, in that email, and in that face-to-face visit, if you haven't already found it, could you point me to your housing needs analysis so I can become familiar with what the city needs?
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Sweet. And so, actually, before I ask another question or keep going on, Michael, do you have anything, or do you want to say anything?
Oh, keep going, Adam. You're going to be the guy that gets started, so you should have the most questions.
Sweet. So, looks like the process would be, I mean, building a quick relationship just to start off, getting your foot in the door, finding out the areas that we can actually target. One question I was going to ask is, are different areas, are we going to have very different laws and regulations by different, area or zip code, or is it all kind of the similar, cool, you can build an ADU here, and here, or it's okay, ADU here, but you need to do it this way, ADU here, but it needs to be like this. You know what I mean?
I do know exactly what you mean. Story of my life. I know what you mean. The answer to that is it's going to be very similar within the same jurisdiction. So if all these are in the city of Fresno, they should be very, very similar. Different zones are going to have different setbacks. If you're in a downtown zone, you can probably build more densely, closer to the front, side, and rear setbacks. If you're in a rural area, you may or may not need parking. There's little siting and design standards that the state says the cities can implement. But for the most part, the state says you can do this. You can do one ADU detached. You can do one JADU attached on any single family lot in any city in our state. So there's this overarching yes. And then within the city, minus those small siting and designs, all the rules should be the same. But here's what's the most important part. It's the same people. That, again, it's a relationship business. It's the same people. So if you get really, really good at this in Fresno, that doesn't mean you're going to be able to go to Stockton and implement the exact same strategy. You're going to be able to build the same size and very similar setbacks, and it's going to be a very similar process, but you're going to have to reestablish those relationships in a new place to be efficient and do it at scale. Anybody can do one of these in any city, but if you're really going to maximize it to scale, that's what I love about Fresno. It's a great market. There's a ton of room to infill. There's a lot of people moving there. It's still fairly affordable. And you don't have to do this in 10 markets. You can get really, really, really good at this in one market and absolutely kill it. So it's going to be fairly repeatable within the same city where you have a system. Another good example of that, if we say we like City of Fresno pre-approved, pre-engineered plans 2, 3, and 4, you're not going to have those pre-engineered, pre-approved in Visalia. It's a different city. So just something to think about.
That makes sense. Okay. You know, another thought that I was having too is I know like during COVID, we saw a lot of people, investors mainly, buying up properties overpriced and turning them into Airbnbs. Now, we all probably know that's not a good idea because they only have one exit strategy. They can't rent out that Airbnb. Now they can't pay the mortgage. But that was happening. A lot of people were overpaying for those houses just to use Airbnbs or use as Airbnbs. Now, my question, and again, I'm not saying, great, we can go overpay for a bunch of properties, but have you noticed that with being able to build an ADU in the back, that we might be able to beat out some competitors in terms of pricing? If we're making offers, let's say, or where might we need to be in terms of, that's kind of something I was wondering about too. Where can we be on pricing considering, okay, we're going to spend $100 a foot plus to build something in the back? How does that affect our buy price? Do we need to be even lower than we typically would? Can we raise it up a little bit from where we might buy it to flip it? That was something I'm wondering. And I know we obviously would just have to run the numbers, but I didn't know if you had any comments on that off the top of your head.
Lots of them. Thank you. The fact is we can overpay for a property that's going to be primed for this strategy if we know we can pull it off. Okay. Another thing that we can do is, I've seen Jason Pritchard post a few flips recently that had second units. I saw EVC Homes do a couple in Fresno that had second units. I would be looking to buy properties that already have one or close to one, not a full garage conversion where there's nothing there. But if it has a little back house that already has a toilet in it, we're going to overpay for that every single time, period. It's not about price. It's about, does this fit our strategy? So if it has any sort of second unit, either legal or not, ideally it's an illegal non-permitted second unit that was done 40 years ago. But now, because of state law, we know we can get it permitted. So we're going to overpay for that property because we have a huge head start.
Can I pause real quick? Because
Yes.
Michael and I have had this happen. We bought a property in 2019, maybe, where, remember that one on Safford? It was completely renovated, had a garage conversion in the back. Seller told us, no, it was built with the conversion, everything was good. And the city was essentially saying, no, that's a garage conversion. And we were like, well, it was done in like the 60s, 50s. Can't you just grandfather it in? And we had a bunch of issues with that because the appraisal was coming back lower, saying that's a tricked out garage, not an accessory unit or an additional unit. And so, one, what is your process like, getting stuff maybe grandfathered in or getting permits and plans to say, okay, we're going to, get this accepted. And then also if you already have something in the back, maybe my brain's not, fully firing yet, but isn't that kind of taking away all of, your work essentially? Cause you want to build that in the back. No. So if it's already there, what does that look like then?
No, if it's already there, I love it. I've been building ADUs since 1996, and I'm currently looking to buy houses that already have an ADU on them. Period. Okay. Show up low rate, low down, fixed rate, 30-year money, done. And then I'll add another one later and hopefully split the lot. So the answer is, it doesn't matter if the value add's already done. If it's a fair price, I'm going to buy it. And I think you guys should too. Because it's so much easier to do that than to build one. With all that being said, the biggest takeaway for our listeners here today, you're looking at a property, it's advertised, priced, and about to be sold as house with ADU or house with secondary unit, mother-in-law, whatever. Call it what you want. Call the city. Okay. We know the planning director. We know the deputy planner. We know the planners. Hey, I have this property under contract at 123 Fresno Street. It has a back unit. Does this back unit have a certificate of occupancy? That's the only thing that matters. It doesn't matter when it was done, who did it, is it grandfathered, realtor told me this, the title company told me this. Does the city have that on record as a certificate of occupancy for a dwelling? Period.
What does that
It
mean?
does. A certificate of occupancy means that there were permits pulled, there was a fire and life safety / building inspection of that structure, and it is certified and stamped by the city to be lived in by somebody. It can be in two flavors. One flavor is a standalone certificate of occupancy for a dwelling. The other flavor would be it's permitted detached living space that may not have a full kitchen. But we want to make sure that that's legal permitted living space, or that it has a certificate of occupancy as a separate dwelling, period. That's all that matters. With that said, I've had several times where I called my good relationships at the city and they said no. And then I do an archive search by going to the county records office and pulling the file, all the archives for permits for X property. And I find, oh, actually in 1965, they pulled permits for an accessory structure conversion of a garage to a dwelling. It was approved. They gave them an address. And I go back to the city and I say, actually, there is a certificate of occupancy because I found the paper trail. Might take you an hour or two. But that's how we confirm. Is it what the realtor says it is? Is it what the seller says it is? Is it what I think it is? So that's why we overpay for those properties. Other properties that we're just going to potentially deploy this strategy on, yes, I wouldn't say overpay. We want to buy deep. You know, I watch all Michael's stuff every day. We want to buy deep right now. We got to be watching the market.
His face wasn't happy when I said, can we overpay for these things? That's not what I was getting to. I was just curious. But yeah.
But yes, we can. Like if there's a house, here's a good example. There's a house on a level lot with alley access, and it already has RV parking. What RV parking to me means is that somebody's already brought water, sewer, power out to a separate little pad somewhere that's probably flat because they used to park their 32-foot diesel pusher there. That's the spot where you build the ADU and your infrastructure is already there. If there's a house that has a detached garage, but it already has a toilet in it, this is huge takeaway, guys. The toilet is the most expensive part, period. That 3-inch pipe where waste, number 1 and number 2 flows downhill. That's the most expensive piece of the whole process. So if you have some kind of outbuilding or structure that already has a toilet or a 3-inch pipe for a clean out for an RV, I'll overpay for that every time. If the house is 1970s and newer, every single house we buy, we scope the sewer. I want to send a high definition lit camera down the sewer. I want to see what kind of material it is. Where does it tie into the main and the street? Are there any root intrusions? Is there degradation? Is there a break? So I'll pay more for that because a lot of people are like, oh, I got this house for 70 grand. Well, you need a $30,000 new sewer. You need a $20,000 new electrical upgrade. You need to repipe the whole house because it's galvanized, that's rusting out. So I pay for infrastructure, and I usually find that in 1970s or newer, flat lots, alley access. Mm-hmm. So yes,
I heard you saying 1970s or newer on your in the episode last week. The last question I'll have that's just kind of off the top of my head. Oh shoot, now I'm losing it. The detached garages. How often do you deal with purchasing a property with a detached garage and turning that into another an ADU in the back versus buying something and just building a straight up ADU back there?
I'd way rather do the latter. The only garage conversions I do is where I buy a house that already has an ADU and then I convert the garage. And this is really important too, folks. If we're going to get good at a repeatable strategy, it has to be controllable. To be controllable, we have to start with a blank canvas. That's why it's so amazing to just show up with the city pre-approved plans or our own that we've already gotten pre-approved that we just repeat. Because we can control the costs, we can control the build, we can control the subs, we can control the design. We know we're going to get a vaulted ceiling every single time and our tenants are going to pay extra for that. We don't get that when we go do conversions. And 50% of the time, clients I work with, I just tell them it's going to be easier and cheaper if you just knock the garage down and build new there. The reason being, most garages were built on slabs. Today, to be habitable living space, we need to have a footing that's X amount below the frost line that has so much rebar in it that's so deep and so wide to build a habitable building on. Even though this garage has stood there since the 40s, the building official is not going to sign it off as a house footing. Quick way to do that is to dig down in the corner with a shovel. To take you 5 minutes. You can dig down 6 or 8 inches and see the bottom of the concrete. That's a slab. I also tell people if it's 1980s and newer, it's probably built on a footing, and that conversion might be a little bit easier. But I would suggest for your guys' plan, we're trying to make this simple. How do we make this repeatable and scalable? We're looking for A, houses that already have them, or B, houses with a nice flat spot where we're going to be able to do this one unit that we do every time, that we're really good at, that we know exactly how much costs. And we might change the accent walls, we might change the trim color, but they're going to be the same. And we're going to get really, really effing good at it.
Yeah, the key to all of this is, again, a takeaway I had from you last week, Derek, where you basically said, you've got your cost because you are so repeatable down to under $100 a square foot, right? The first time we do this, I'm not convinced that we'll be anywhere close to that. But I know over time we can start pre-building things. We can build walls offsite, and we can do all of these things to make it cheaper and faster just by being repetitive. So that's what I'm trying to get to with you, Adam, is, we've done it 2 or 3 times. Now we can bring it to the one rental at a time community. Then this could be something you build off and become, this company. You could build a company that's all you do. And again, you could quote unquote market to corner lots with alley access, right?
Yeah.
That are 7,500 square feet or bigger lots.
That was my
these
first
just
thought.
These just become things that you go market to, because maybe you could spend an extra $5,000 because now you can build an ADU for $85,000, and the ADU brings $160,000 in value. Bingo bango, buy a house, sell a duplex. This is where this goes, but we've got to start with getting the first one right. And you've got to do the legwork. You've got to be the nice guy that you are, the sweetheart. You've got to follow up. You've got to just be that resource to the city and get the housing needs analysis. And we got to find a professional land use planner. And we've got to make sure the first one is right. This is what I did wrong. I thought money and a free lot would be easy to do. And I was wrong and arrogant and stupid. We're going to do it right this time. And you're the linchpin for me to do this.
Yeah, don't beat yourself up, Michael. That's normal. What you did was what everybody else does if they haven't already failed. It took you spending $8,000 and slamming your head against your desk for 6 or 8 months to pivot. It's just, that's normal. That's you don't beat yourself up.
It's okay. I don't mind owning mistakes. That's what I want to do. I don't mind owning mistakes. Yeah. This was a mistake. Stories. I own it. And that's why I'm willing to give you the list of properties, Adam. You've got to go see the city. We've got to get the phone numbers. You got to start doing what you do better than me. And we just got to find the one that the city says go. And we got to figure it out. And again, this can become, I see this in a couple of 3 steps for you, Adam. Step 1, we're going to learn a bunch of shit that you can use for the next 40 years in Fresno. 2, you're going to get a pipeline of other people in my community that want to do this. You can project manage their projects and get paid for that. And then ultimately you get to half a dozen. This becomes another avenue of income for you as you're marketing and negotiating great deals here, doing the work here. Bingo bango. It's a puzzle, kind of, pre-sold stuff. So there's a lot of possibilities, but we can't get excited about the future until we do the first one.
I agree. And I think it's a really cool, I've heard Derek talk about this and I've seen a lot of his stuff before too. And so a lot of the times you see a lot of cool stuff like that and you think that's really, really awesome. There's probably a lot more to it. I don't know if I want to get into it, but for the most part, the process isn't too difficult. It's really just figuring out the back end steps of where we need to be, how we need to build stuff. And I know that, talking to the people at the city might be the hardest part of that. And that doesn't seem that bad. So I think, Mike, to start off, we can start looking at some of the properties you have, get a little bit of a relationship developed, and then figure out maybe can we utilize something you already have? Do we need to find something else, market for it? Okay. And kind of go from there. Does that sound about right?
Derek?
Yes, that does sound right. I think more than anything, you guys need to take action. Like it does need to be right. I just want to clarify there's a difference between Michael saying, let's get this right, and the first one has to be perfect. Because if we have the first one has to be perfect mindset, we'll never start. You have to take action. And we're going to take the most perfect site with the most perfect plan, and then we're going to go take massive action. And after that one, we're going to get even better. I participated in over 200 ADU builds. We're building 2 ADUs right now in 90 days. And I've made like 3 huge mistakes this week that I should have never made on my second one, let alone the 200th. So build failure into your plan. Don't beat yourself up. But yes, just like you guys said, enact that, but take action. Find the first best lot, form that relationship, come up with a super simple design, whether it's your own that you're going to repeat or one of the city's 5.
I'll be very clear. We are taking one of the city's 5. We will never do our own. Again,
Okay.
I've learned that
Okay.
lesson. We're taking one of the City Fives. I don't. I want to take the risk out of it.
Yeah.
Just out of it. We will eventually add our special pixie dust with paints and colors and extras, but not the first one. It's just like, let's just get this done. And one of the
Yeah.
things I wanted to be
Wonderful.
very clear about this is we're doing this in Fresno. My hope is people watch this in other cities across the country and pick up the mantra and, hey, I want to do this in Vegas or Phoenix or LA or wherever it is. And we can all help Derek get to his point of 1 million, influencing 1 million ADUs, because I think it is achievable when people realize the opportunity. Derek, any closing thoughts?
No, I want to tell everybody that this is very simple. It's not easy, but it's very simple. Like Adam alluded to, it's people get they get overwhelmed with, oh, the new building and, oh, going and talking to the city. And in all reality, this is way easier than a massive remodel. It really is, because you can control everything and you're starting fresh and everything is going to be plumb level and square. So all the investors out there that think, oh, that's too big of a project, it's not. It's actually easier than a massive remodel that I'm seeing on social of people doing in Fresno every day. So don't be afraid. And it's all about building those relationships, having a simple design, and then self-managing the project. That's how we do it efficiently, and that's how we save money. That's how we give our tenants an affordable place, and we also drive our own yield. I call it capitalism with compassion, and you can do it too.
Adam, any closing thoughts? You ready to give this first one a go?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have any closing thoughts. I think it should all be pushed over to Derek. I know he's doing his 90-day challenge. I don't even think I follow him on Instagram. That
Come on,
80
man.
guy.
That ADU guy.
I gotta go do that. Anyways, I've seen his work. He's spoken at some of the events we've had here in Fresno. He's been to some of the dinners. I know Derek is super, super knowledgeable, so it's really cool that we got to have him on today. I'm excited because I've been learning some new strategies, and I learned about novations not too long ago, and this sounds a lot more easy to grasp than even novations. And I know novations is such an easier process, so I'm really excited to dig into this, build some good relationships too, and find out what we can utilize in our market and be able to turn into something that we never would have really even thought of doing. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah,
All right,
good
guys.
point. One thing I'll add, and Michael, real quick, is I can't believe nobody's doing this in Fresno. The last time I talked to the city planner, they had 6 people come in and ask for their plans. In a city of that size, I cannot believe there's such a huge untapped market for such an amazing asset class. I mean, in 5 years, everybody's going to be doing this. I can't believe nobody's doing it today. It blows me away.
Yeah, that is very interesting. I guess.
All right, Adam. We got to blaze the trail. We're going to figure it out. Guys, thank you very much. Derek, you've been a gem. Thank you for helping me try to push this vision forward. Adam, thank you for being the go-between. Again, you're going to be much easier to build that relationship. You are a much nicer guy than I am. So we can't do this without you. Guys, take care. Have an amazing week.